The Breeders' Cup has changed horse racing forever, becoming the season finale of American racing, and the biggest equine event in our country that is not called the Triple Crown. And this November, the 40th annual Breeders' Cup World Championships are going to be held at Santa Anita Park. Today, we will celebrate those 40 years with 40 facts about the Breeders' Cup. Number 1. The Breeders' Cup was first run in 1984 at the now-defunct Hollywood Park, with over 64,000 in attendance. Despite being first run in 1984, plans for the Breeders' Cup were put into motion in 1982. Number 2. In the 1984 Breeders' Cup, it was only a one-day event with 7 races. Starting in 2007, it has since doubled to a 2-day event, with currently 14 races. Number 3. The first Breeders' Cup race ever ran was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile for 2-year-old horses. It was won by Chief's Crown and featured the following year's Kentucky Derby winner, Spendabuck, finishing 3rd. Number 4. The Breeders' Cup was not the first attempt at a giant end-of-year horse race. In 1975, the National Thoroughbred Championship was held at Santa Anita. However, after it lost its favorite, Forgo, the race failed to generate much interest, and was discontinued after only 2 runnings. Both were won by trainer Charlie Whittingham. Number 5. The most winning post position in the Breeders' Cup is number 5, with 46 winners so far. 5 is also the most winning post position for the Kentucky Derby. Second place is closely followed by post number 4, with 44 winners, and the least lucky is superstitiously number 13, with only 5 winners. Number 6. The name Breeders' Cup was chosen by John R. Gaines, who named the race in honor of thoroughbred breeders, who provided a large amount of funding for the inaugural running. Number 7. The Breeders' Cup Classic is currently the richest horse race in America, being worth $6 million, and the Breeders' Cup Turf also holds its own record, being the richest turf race in America, at $4 million. Number 8. The greatest upset in Breeders' Cup history came in the 1993 Breeders' Cup Classic, when French-bred Arcong won the race without a single start on dirt. The tote board said that he was 99-1, but he was actually an even crazier 133-1. Number 9. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Meadowstar is the heaviest favorite to win a Breeders' Cup, entering the juvenile fillies unbeaten in 6 starts. She was put at odds of 1-5, meaning you would only get 20 cents back for every dollar you bet. Second choice was a horse named Light Light, who would later be owned by none other than MC Hammer.
Can't touch this.
Number 10. There has only been one time where the Breeders' Cup was held outside of the United States. That would be in the 1996 running, where it was held at Woodbine Racehorse in Toronto, Canada. Number 11. In the 2003 Breeders' Cup Turf, High Chaparral and Johar hit the wire at the exact same time, making it the only dead heat for first place in Breeders' Cup history. High Chaparral was also the first horse to win 2 Breeders' Cup Turfs, before later being equaled by Conduit 6 years later. Number 12. The oldest horse ever to win a Breeders' Cup race was Kaleidoscopio, who won the 2012 Breeders' Cup Marathon at the age of 9, coming from 20 lengths off the pace. His last race before that Breeders' Cup was 163 days prior, in his home country of Argentina, making it the longest hiatus before winning a Breeders' Cup race, closely followed by dual turf sprint winner Misdirection at 160 days. Number 13. The most Breeders' Cup wins by a jockey is currently 26, done by Mike Smith. His first 2 came on the exact same horse in the same race, when he rode Lure to win back-to-back victories in the 92 and 93 Breeders' Cup Mile. Most recently, he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile on Corniche in 2021. Number 14. The most wins by a trainer in the Breeders' Cup is 20, with D. Wayne Lucas. The first was with Twilight Ridge in the 85 Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and his most recent was also in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, being in the 2014 running with Take Charge Brandy, making him also the oldest trainer to win a Breeders' Cup, being 79 years old at the time. Number 15. The youngest jockey and trainer to win a Breeders' Cup is held by the same person, Joseph O'Brien. At age 18, he won the Breeders' Cup Turf on St. Nicholas Abbey, who was trained by his father, Aidan O'Brien. He retired from riding at just the age of 23, and then at age 26, he trained Iridessa to win the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf in 2019. Number 16. The most Breeders' Cup races won by a single horse is a tie between Goldakova and Beholder, who both won 3 over the course of their careers. Number 17. In total, 22 horses have won at least 2 Breeders' Cup races. Out of those 22, 7 have won 2 separate Breeders' Cup races, with the Breeders' Cup race with the most repeat winners being the Breeders' Cup Mile, with 5. Number 18. The greatest winning margin in a Breeders' Cup race is 13.5 lengths by Inside Information in the 1995 Breeders' Cup Distaff. Number 19. Germany is the only country to breed exactly 1 Breeders' Cup winner, and it came in the form of Scirocco, who won the 2005 Breeders' Cup Turf. Number 20. Although Love's Only You and March Lorraine made headlines for winning Breeders' Cup races in 2021 for Japan, they technically were not the first Japanese-bred horses to win a Breeders' Cup. That would go to Caraconti, who was bred in Japan but raced in France and took the 2014 Breeders' Cup Mile. Number 21. Besides the United States themselves, the country with the most Breeders' Cup victories is Ireland, with 44 as of 2022. Number 22. If you're wondering how many Breeders' Cup races Americans have won, it's currently 297, with 240 of those American winners being bred in Kentucky. Number 23. The country with the most Breeders' Cup starters without a single win is Brazil, with 15 total tries, and Chile being a close second with 14, and their best finish coming in the form of Leoa des Animo, who was second in the 2005 Breeders' Cup Mile. 7 years later, his son Animal Kingdom would also finish second in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Like father, like son. Number 24. In the history of the Breeders' Cup, there have been 2 races that have been discontinued, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint and the Breeders' Cup Marathon, both due to a lack of quality runners. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint specifically holds the record for the smallest Breeders' Cup field, with only 5 horses running in the 2012 iteration, which led to its inevitable discontinuation. Number 25. Channel Maker is the horse that has ran in the most Breeders' Cup races ever, running in 6 separate Breeders' Cup races, with his last one being in 2022. Number 26. The first time a female jockey won the Breeders' Cup was Julie Crone, who also won the Belmont Stakes in 1994. She won the 2003 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies on Half Bridled. And this is Julie Crone with...
Hi, my Half Bridled hat on from winning Half Bridled from my Breeders' Cup.
Since then, only Rosie Napravnik has followed, with the 2012 Breeders' Cup Juvenile on Shanghai Bobby, and the 2014 Breeders' Cup Distaff with Untappable. Number 27. The first woman trainer to win a Breeders' Cup race came earlier in 1996, with Janine Zahadi training Lee de Justice to victory in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Number 28. During the 2008 and 2009 Breeders' Cups held at Santa Anita, all dirt races were run on synthetic polytrack, including the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, which did not have its name changed. Number 29. Only twice has the winning horse of a Breeders' Cup race been disqualified due to interference. Both times it was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. First, in the inaugural running of the Breeders' Cup in 1984, Franz Valentine was taken down. And then, in the 30th running, She's a Tiger was disqualified. Number 30. Starting in 1986, there was a race called the Breeders' Cup Steeplechase. However, it was never given official Breeders' Cup status, and was always run in Far Hills, New Jersey, a track that has never hosted the Breeders' Cup and only runs jumps races. The last time this race had the Breeders' Cup title in front of it was 2006, and since then, it's been called the Grand National Hurdle Stakes. Number 31. In the Breeders' Cup Classic, only 2 fillies or mares have finished in the top 3. The obvious one is Zenyatta, who did it twice, winning in 2009 and then coming in second in 2010. But the other one is the lesser-known French filly Jolifa, who was third to AP Indy in the 1992 Classic and had never raced on dirt before. Number 32. Tiznow is the only horse to win the Breeders' Cup Classic twice, with Zenyatta being the closest behind him, only losing her second attempt at the Classic by a head. In both of Tiznow's Breeders' Cup victories, the second place finisher was trained in Europe and had never raced on dirt before in their careers. In 2000, it was Giant's Causeway, and in 2001, it was Saki, who had previously won the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe the start before. Number 33. Speaking of the Arc de Triomphe, the only horse to ever win both the Arc and a Breeders' Cup race in the same year was Enable, who won her second Arc and then the Breeders' Cup Turf in the span of just a month in 2018. Number 34. Only 2 Breeders' Cup Juvenile winners have gone on to win the Kentucky Derby, and only 2 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winners have gone on to win the Kentucky Oaks. They were Street Sense and Nyquist, and for the Oaks, Open Mind and Silver Bullet Day. Although ironically, Franz Valentine won the inaugural Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, but was then disqualified due to interference. And then later down the road, she won the Kentucky Oaks. Number 35. 5 winners of the Kentucky Derby would go on to win a Breeders' Cup race afterward. 4 of them were in the first 7 runnings of the Breeders' Cup Classic. American Pharoah is the most famous, as after becoming the first horse to win the Triple Crown in 37 years, he became the first horse in 25 years to win the Kentucky Derby and the Breeders' Cup Classic. He also is the only horse to ever win the Grand Slam, which is the Triple Crown and then the Breeders' Cup Classic. Number 36. Only 3 Kentucky Derby winners have ran in Breeders' Cup races that were not the Classic. Winning Colors in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, Mind That Bird in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and Animal Kingdom in the Breeders' Cup Mile on the turf. The best finishers being Winning Colors and Animal Kingdom, who both came second. Number 37. The sire who's produced the most Breeders' Cup winners is More Than Ready, with 6 of his progeny winning a total of 7 Breeders' Cup races. While on the dam side, the most wins in the Breeders' Cup from an individual broodmare is 4, with Leslie's Lady, who gave birth to both Silver Bullet Day and Beholder. Her first Breeders' Cup win and her last Breeders' Cup win were 18 years apart. Number 38. In total, 11 tracks have held the Breeders' Cup, with Santa Anita Park hosting it more times than any other racetrack, hosting it exactly 11 times, including this year, 2 more than second place Churchill Downs. Number 39. The Breeders' Cup has had 3 track announcers over the course of its run. Tom Durkin called the first Breeders' Cup all the way until 2005, Trevor Denman from 2006 to 2011, and from 2012 until today, it's been Larry Colmus. And finally, number 40. During the 2002 Breeders' Cup, a major betting scandal occurred when 3 former frat brothers reunited to try and win big. With one of them on the inside working for Autotote, he was able to take advantage of a half-an-hour delay between certain races in off-track betting to alter the betting tickets of his friends after the race had finished, giving them all 4 winners of the Pick 4. Then for the last 2 races in the Pick 6, they bet on every single horse in the Breeders' Cup Turf and Classic, winning over $3 million. What got them busted was that the winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic, Volponi, was 43-1, and they were the only jackpot winners. The final payout was simply too great, and immediately considered suspicious, and so they were quickly outed as frauds, and received jail time, ranging from 1 to 2 years. And those are 40 facts you may or may not have known about the Breeders' Cup. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want more facts videos like this, suggest what I should cover next time in the comment section below. Also put in the comments who you think is going to win each Breeders' Cup race. For the Breeders' Cup Classic, I'm going to be rooting for Ushba Tesoro. See you guys next time.